The last thing we're going to do is configure service discovery, which we'll do at the service level. So let's go and find our service. Let's have a look at the props. Let's see on base service options. And we have Cloud Map, which is the built-in ECS service discovery. So what does Cloud Map options want? It needs a Cloud Map namespace, a DNS record type. We probably get away with the default on that. And there's a few other settings, but I think we might be okay. So we probably need a name and a Cloud Map namespace. Let's have a look at that namespace. So that's a type or set of values we're going to have to find from somewhere. And we're going to need that, that Cloud Map namespace in two places. We're going to need it in each of our services. So let's pop over to the other project where we made our VPC and let's check out the ECS cluster. Now, do we have anything to do with Cloud Map on here? Okay, so we can add a default namespace. And there is a getter for retrieving one. So let's do a bit of a snoop around in our template here. And is there anything for Cloud Map yet? Okay, there isn't. We can see if we can add one. So let's pop back to where the clusters are fine. We can do cluster.add default Cloud Map namespace. What options do we have to provide there? So we need the name. I'll just leave that blank for a moment so we can go and check out the props. And then we need the type as well. And I think we're going to go with DNS private. So let's pop back. And we are going to have to specify that VPC because we're going to use private DNS. So we want a name, type, and VPC. So let's set up the name and we'll call it, I'll tell you what, why don't we, we'll call it CDK Course.cloud, something like that. And we'll set the type, and that's going to be DNS private. And then we have to provide the, the VPC. All right, let's deploy that. Okay, and that is deployed. Let's go and check it out in the console. So here's Cloud Map. We can find our namespace. Inside the namespace, we have a bit more detail. We've got the name you're going to call it with and an ID, and this ID is going to be important later. We can also see some information about the Route 53 hosted zone that has been created for this Cloud Map, or for this Cloud Map namespace, I should say. So let's go and have a look at that hosted zone. And you can see it's got CDK Course.cloud as the domain name, and it's associated with our VPC. So let's have a look at linking up our service to this service discovery system. In the service configuration here, we're going to add a Cloud Map options object, and we're going to set a name for our service, which we'll call the ping service. And then we're going to need a Cloud Map namespace. Now this is another case where we've got to grab types or values, I should say, from somewhere else. And we've got three values that are suggested on the interface here. And obviously there's the type, but we know the type is always going to be a private DNS namespace. And you can do a bit of trial and error and find which ones of them are actually required. And in this case, we need a namespace ID. So let's fill out as much of this as we can. So let's have the type here, which will be DNS private. And we can add in the ID, which I'm just going to leave as blank for now, the ARN, and I'm going to put in unused there, and the namespace name, which I'll put in unused as well. So we have to be a little bit careful taking this approach where we are putting in values that we know don't work, but I can synthesize these and have a look in the template and see that they are not present. And what else are we missing from here? Sorry, I've put this in as a raw object, whereas we need to use a little class to make this. So let's populate this in. What's the method called? From private DNS attributes. There we go. From private DNS namespace attributes, we'll attach it to the current scope, pop in our name, and then we can have our field with all of those identifiers. All right, so we've got Cloud Map options, we've given the service a name, and we're going to link it up to these things here, only using the ID because we think that this is the only bit that's actually getting taken out of this larger or more complicated interface. Let's pop to the VPC project and let's add another parameter. So we can do this one, let's call this Cloud Map namespace ID actually, sorry, we need for that. So let's do Cloud Map namespace, and that's an ID. And we can grab our namespace from the cluster again. So let's do cluster.get default namespace. Where are we? Oh, sorry, it's a getter. There it is. And we'll assume that that's present and get the ID. Oh, it's not going to like that type. I'm going to just assert here that that's definitely set because we know that we've provided that earlier in the code just above here. Okay, let's deploy this side. Great, and with that deployed, let's pop over to our ping service and we can find and look up we made earlier, just for reference. And let's pop that in here for the namespace ID. Let's change this over to Cloud Map namespace and ID. Then let's run a deploy on this side. All right, so that's the service deployed with the changes. Let's go and have a look in Service Map. Sorry, Cloud Map. So let's pop over to Cloud Map. I'm in the wrong region for some reason. There we go. Let's have a look at our namespace. And we've got a service called the ping service. If we have a look in Route 53 at the associated zone, we have a record for ping service.cdk course.cloud, and that's going to link up to our service. Excellent. So last step for this milestone, if you like, is to make our ping service try and call the pong service. So let's do that. So what should we have? Let's do a set interval. And how often should we do this? Maybe every 10 seconds, give or take. And then let's do an API call. So should we have a library for this? Yeah, why not? Let's treat ourselves. Let's pop into lib, containers, ping service. We'll have ourselves an Axios. And then we can try to Axios the, you know, actually let's not stick in a try because we've got the promise and set interval won't work with the promises. Let's do a get of the pong service dot CDK Course.cloud on port 3000, and then we'll get the response. And so we're going to discard the response and we're going to say hello world. Or no, let's do it. We did it. There we go. And then we'll do a catch. And if we get an error, we will say failed to contact pong service. And then we can pop in the error, give that a format, give Axios an import. And I'm just going to disable this for the whole block, this ESLint rule here. And I'll re-enable it at the end. Okay, so that is one side of the application done. Every 10 seconds, we're going to try and contact the pong service. And we've made the ping service and we've set it up with Cloud Map. In the next lesson, we're going to refactor this set of infrastructure here, shall we say, into a construct. We're going to deploy it to the pong service, and then we're going to see if the ping can pong the ping, and so on. All right, folks, catch you in a bit.